How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, oh wow. That's what I'm going to say. Oh wow. I have to admit that this election season will go down in the history books, and everyone is pandering to the royal family. These candidates out here, they trying to come up with the best slogan, the best lie, catchphrase, or whatever to redirect our energy and for us to just simply overlook their record. And I know that they hate the internet by now, because literally at our fingertips we can pull up a lot of stuff on people. So now, since we have this at our fingertips, it changes the dynamics on many things. And these candidates, many of them are not in sync with what's going on with this information technology. They are still operating back like it's 50 something years ago. So they're going to continue to spew what they spew. They're non-progressive. And this is really, really deep. So I will be coming back to Trump and Bloomberg, and I'm going to break some things down about them. But I'm going to take the royal family on a journey about Mike Bloomberg and the shenanigans and the games that he is playing. That's why I put the title the way that I put that. So let's start here with this article on News One. And I'm going to read a portion of it because the other is just talking about his polling, the polls and all that stuff. And I'm not interested. I always am very interested in what I call the juicy parts of things. So we have here, this was posted February 14th. Never Bloomberg will black voters threaten to sit out election day if he's the nominee. Mike Bloomberg entered the presidential race when it was already packed with candidates, and in a short amount of time, he's already became a formidable candidate. Black people are concerned, but there are also black people who are in full support. The former New York mayor is steadily becoming the most polarized candidate in the 2020 election, so much so that some influential black leaders are adapting a anyone but Bloomberg mantra. On Friday, writer and political commentator Charles Blow tweeted, "I'm fine with any of the remaining Dem candidates. I was fine with almost all of the original 24, but Bloomberg is a hill I cannot climb. I'm hoping and praying that Dems choose a candidate I can champion. Some folks are even opting to stay home on election day if Bloomberg becomes the Democratic nominee. Obviously, it is too soon to call, but the threats of not voting definitely say a word about how certain black people feel about Bloomberg." Now, I'm starting to hear people who staunchly support the Democratic Party already, and it's mainly folks that look like you and I, that if Trump wins, it is the royal family's fault. These boule coons and coondelettes out there saying this shit, like Roly-Poly Martin and Angela Rye, and it goes on and on and on, that they want to put this in our lap because there's a lot of spiritual things going on, my royal family. Keep in mind, we are out of our captivity. We may not see any results of anything just yet, but this energy that I keep talking about is, as these table turns, because it's all about regaining our throne, that metaphorically, I already see, and I've said it the other day, that they are bowing down to us, even though they can't stand us. This is ironic that the very people that y'all keep saying that don't even have an impact on America, we the lowest of the low when it comes to the population, based on how they set it up, we shouldn't even be here no more. Those numbers, either I would hear 11 to probably we're 11 to 13% of the population. Well, I've been hearing that as long as I can remember. I've heard my grandparents say it. And you got to remember, when you see numbers like that that's getting close to the single digits, we literally don't supposed to even exist based on the enemy's calculations. So why are you pandering to the royal family? As we continue on. So I went over here to Bloomberg's site, and we seeing these coons, and there's one right there, Mike for Black America. Woo, he's sitting right before the devil himself. For too long, Black Americans have been kept from fully participating in the American economy. As president, Mike Bloomberg is committed to changing that. The time for empty promises is over. Let's get real and close the Black wealth gap. Mike has proposed an ambitious strategy to invest in Black wealth creation and close the racial wealth gap that plagues our country. We're calling it Greenwood Initiative, and it has 3 big goals. So let's see what these 3 big goals is. Black homeowners. Help 1 million or more Black families buy a home to counteract the effects of redlining and the subprime mortgage crisis. And we know that he was down for redlining. Black businesses. Double the number of Black-owned businesses. Mike will start by increasing capital for entrepreneurs in Black communities by strengthening enforcement of the community's Reinvestment Act to make sure the lenders are fully serving Black businesses. Black wealth. Triple the wealth of Black families over the next 10 years. Mike place-based strategy will invest $70 billion in 100 communities around the country. And I wanted to let y'all know, I do have a bonus video. Now, in this bonus video that I have, you will learn that Bloomberg has made these type of statements before, and I did not take the time, but if anybody is from New York, when he was mayor, those promises that he made, I would like y'all to let me know. It's just so much that I can compact because I want to show what I really want to show. So anybody, let us know these promises that he made in the community. Did he fulfill them? So as we continue on, let's get into this first video. And we're going to start hearing more about what's going on with Bloomberg. Some things that folks is talking about. Remember, like I said, when you are out on a platform long enough, you will reveal thy true self.
Mike Bloomberg reacting to President Trump's barrage of attacks this week, but the former New York City mayor also facing incoming about his long record in public life. And we're back now with the panel. Donna, as we've been saying, Mayor Bloomberg rising in the polls, news stories coming out, old tapes coming out about his record on race, and as we've said several times, a big story, a takeout in the Washington Post today about his, and you can see it there, about his long history of sexist comments going back decades at his company, and women saying that they believed he created a hostile workplace. How damaging to his campaign?
Extremely. Look, I think there are many people in the Democratic Party who are looking looking at Mr. Bloomberg because he has the resources to take on President Trump. But the question, in my judgment, is his record. I mean, I am uncomfortable with his policies in New York. I understand he's apologized. I get that. I'm for forgiveness. But I am extremely dismayed at the information I read over the weekend about the sexist work environment. You know, it's one thing to have this so-called top law enforcement policy of stop and frisk. It was ruled unconstitutional, and it has taken him years to say, "I'm sorry about that." He has the resources, but I'm very uncomfortable with his record. Very uncomfortable.
Guy.
Okay.
Now from.
All right, we're gonna get a little deeper into it. So let's listen to this blubbering nut.
What do you say to people who say Mike Bloomberg is only apologizing now for stop and frisk, a policy he's defended in the past? You're aware of the audio that came out from a 2015 speech. Why now? Just because he's running for president?
Well, Jim, he didn't just begin apologizing now. Last night wasn't the first time he's apologized for this, but I think the timing of the apology
only in recent
the
weeks,
most
though,
important
to be fair.
thing.
He did go to a church, but that's since his candidacy became an issue.
Well, look, I mean, Mike will always have to apologize for this. It was a mistake. He held on to it for too long. He defended it for too long. And it was deeply damaging and painful to people of color in New York. And I think Mike will have to spend the rest of his career, his public career, proving to people that stop and frisk does not represent who he is as a person or a politician. Having said that, stop and frisk hardly represents the totality of his time as mayor. He lowered the incarceration rate when he was mayor of New York. He diversified the NYPD. He started a model program for integrating young people of color into job networks that Barack Obama modeled My Brother's Keeper on. This is a much more complex, compassionate, and thoughtful man than that one policy would suggest.
I want to ask about the money here, because Michael Bloomberg has been spending money, but multiples of what other candidates, except, of course, Tom Steyer, $350 million so far. That's nearly 10 times what Bernie Sanders, who of course is not using, does not have a personal fortune to back that up. Is that good for the political process? What does it say to Democratic voters if part of the message here is that we're the party of the small man and woman, when you have a billionaire using resources that only a billionaire can use?
Well, Jim, you tell me, what's the right price to save democracy from Donald Trump right now? If you come up with that figure and you let me know. The reality right now is the DNC has about $8 million in the bank. Donald Trump and the RNC have $180 million, and we expect about $900 million more in dark money is going to flow into this campaign. Had Mike Bloomberg not entered this race, the Democrats would be severely back on their heels organizationally and financially. As you know, Mike has vowed to put the entire machine we're building and this fortune that he's pouring into this campaign at the service of the party or whoever the nominee is, ultimately, even if it's not him.
All right. So we know that Bloomberg is spending a great deal of money. And I got something to show y'all too that I left out about his spending money. We're going to take a quick little detour. Some may know this and some may not. Let me go over here. Let me see. What is that? Oh, yeah. Oops. There it is. Okay. Let me see if it's in here. Oh, here it is. Check this out. Stacey Abrams defends Mike Bloomberg after she received $5 million for a PAC in December. This motherfucker is buying folks. Now this bitch is up here all of a sudden bucking even harder. I'm gonna play this real quick because I want to make sure we catch this.
Stacey Abrams defends Michael Bloomberg after she receives $5 million for PAC in December. By Charlie Spiring on February 18, 2020. Failed Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams defended billionaire Michael Bloomberg on Monday for using his riches to compete in the Democrat presidential primary. Every person is allowed to run and should run the race that they think they should run, and Mike Bloomberg has chosen to use his finances, Abrams said in an interview on ABC's The View on Monday about Bloomberg. Abrams compared Bloomberg using his billions to boost his campaign to other candidates using their natural talent or pets to run for office. Other people are using their dog, their charisma, their whatever, she said. I think it's an appropriate question to raise. But I don't think it's disqualifying for anyone to invest in fixing America. According to Federal Election Commission, FEC records, Abrams received a $5 million donation from Bloomberg in December 2019 to Fair Fight, her political action committee to fight voter suppression. Abrams indicated it was comforting to know the source of Michael Bloomberg's money, despite many Democrats complaining that the former New York City mayor was trying to buy the election. I think that for once we actually know where the money is coming from, she said. Abrams also walked back her March 2019 assertion that she was no longer interested in serving as a vice presidential candidate. It would be doing a disservice to every woman of color, every woman of ambition, every child who wants to think beyond their known space for me to say no or to pretend. Oh, no, I don't want it, she said in the interview. Of course I want it. Of course, I want to serve America. Of course I want to be a patriot and do this work.
So, that's necessary. We got to keep an eye on this bitch. That basically she just hold herself out. All right? And that little explanation that she came up with is bullshit. As we continue on. So let's get over here. Let's see, is this the one? No, the next one. So let's get a little deeper into this.
Second set of stories this afternoon involving Michael Bloomberg and his campaign for the Democratic nomination. A major piece in the Washington Post today shedding new light on the workplace culture at his company and allegations that have been made against the former mayor of New York City. We're going to dig into that piece with the reporter behind it and report Mike Bloomberg is considering a familiar face to be his running mate were he to be the nominee, none other than former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I want to start with that reporting on Mike Bloomberg. Joining me by phone is Washington Post investigative reporter Michael Kranish. He's on the phone with me here in New York as New York Times editorial writer Mara Gay. She covered Mike Bloomberg when she was a reporter covering City Hall for the Wall Street Journal. Michael, let me start with you and your piece, and I want to ask you, what is new here? You got your hands on this book that was given to Mike Bloomberg at a birthday party. It's been widely reported on and quoted from. You have the thing in full. It's posted on the Washington Post site. Help us understand how this story advances this afternoon.
Sure. Well, there's several things that are new. First of all, for a lot of people, they're probably just learning about Michael Bloomberg. So even if we were going over the general knowledge, I think that would be of interest. And here we have a number of new things. So you mentioned there was a booklet, 32 pages, that was given to Bloomberg of quotes attributed to him. A lot of them are considered profane and sexist towards women in particular. So while quotes have been out there, I haven't seen the full booklet out, and we decided to put that entire booklet, which I obtained from a source, online. Perhaps the most significant new thing in the story is one of the key things that Bloomberg's been asked about for many years is a lawsuit filed by a former top saleswoman at his company who had alleged in the suit that when she was pregnant, he came to her and said, "Kill it," quote unquote, which she took it as an instruction to have an abortion according to her lawsuit. So that lawsuit was settled with confidentiality agreement. In this story, I quote on the record an individual who's never spoken before, and we posted the audio from part of an interview with the story. So you can hear the audio online, and he is a witness. So he's the first person to come forward and basically say, I was there, I heard what was said by Bloomberg, to this saleswoman, and he had a pretty similar recollection. He said he remembered Mr. Bloomberg saying to the saleswoman, "Are you going to kill it?" quote unquote. And he told me that he found this to be an outrageous statement and that he'd heard Mr. Bloomberg made a number of crude comments towards women. So that's never been reported before. And even though it's a case that's been around going back to the late 1990s and came up in his 2001 mayoral campaign, I also obtained under the Freedom of Information Act depositions that Bloomberg gave in a case that alleged that there was workplace discrimination at his company. So a number of things that I think expand the knowledge about his treatment and what he said to women.
Michael, you tried to get in touch with the candidate, get him to sit down for an interview with you when you bring all of this to light. They declined to do that. But what's the campaign said in response to this reporting? And indeed, what have they said over these years about the story that you cite there involving what they say is Michael Bloomberg and this saleswoman?
Okay. So in regards to the booklet that's called The Wit and Wisdom of Michael Bloomberg and has these profane and sexist comments, over the years, Bloomberg has said he doesn't recall, or he didn't say that, or they're borscht belt jokes, or he apologized to those who might have been offended by certain things that he may have said. When we told them we were putting the entire booklet online, they came back and said he never said any of the things in this booklet. So that's their story as of this. At the same time, their spokesperson is quoted on the record saying there are things that Bloomberg has said that are wrong and disrespectful. And I asked them, well, what are those things? And they didn't describe any specifics about what was wrong or disrespectful. So that, there are several statements there that some people may wonder, where does that leave things? It seems like it's up to Mr. Bloomberg to explain, if there were things that were wrong and disrespectful, what were they? Did he apologize to the people who he said them to, and so on?
Michael, very quickly.
They deny, just to be clear on the Garrison case, that saleswoman, they deny all those allegations. Bloomberg has flatly denied the allegations in the lawsuit about him saying to the saleswoman, Sakiko Sakai Garrison, to kill it in regards to her unborn child.
Michael Kranich, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Michael Kranich, the reporter behind that piece in the Washington Post there on Michael Bloomberg and these allegations that have been made against him. Mara Gay, I'll turn to you and go back to something that Michael said just a moment ago. These are things that were talked about, came up during the course of his mayoralty here in New York. To what degree were they talked about, spoken about? To what degree was it a weight on him when he was mayor and running for mayor?
So that's right. There's almost, the advantage here for the Democrats with someone like Michael Bloomberg is there's almost nothing that's going to come out about him that hasn't already been out in the public before. The comments that he made and the way he ran his company was a constant source of discussion every election, each of his 3 elections. And as was stop and frisk. But, it's just good to remember this is not a very talented retail politician. This is a 77-year-old billionaire who transformed himself into a politician over time. He's not polished. And for some people, that might be part of the appeal. There's a sense that he's genuine in a way. Maybe he says some things that are crude or inappropriate at the time. But I think in the context of having Donald Trump having broken all of the rules at this point, it's going to really be up to the voters to suss out what's important to them. Do they feel how do they feel that those comments, for example, stack up against the Hollywood access tape? Or frankly, Donald Trump's actions. So I think it's in context, it's just not going to be as big of a deal as it was maybe in the past. But for New Yorkers, this is really nothing new.
Okay, let me make sure I shut that down completely. I don't want no pop-ups.
Welcome to Tuesday. It is a special edition of Meet the Press Day.
Okay, let me shut that down. And what I want to say, my royal family, is so far, Bloomberg is a typical paranoid billionaire. That's the best way I can put it, and he's very preoccupied with the royal family. But the other part about him that's regular when it comes to the enemy, and I'm being Pacific, the male enemy, is that's how they treat their women. That's how they look at women in general. There is no difference between him and Trump when it comes to that. But there is a big difference between Trump and him too, and I'll unpack all of that at the end. and that's going to be specific to the bonus video that I'm going to show the royal family, that Bloomberg is more dangerous than Trump. And I know y'all going to be like, wow, and worse. I know, wow. That's what I said, but I'll point that out. So let's get into this next video. And what I like about this video is there's some key things that are being said that just struck a chord with me. And so let's just listen how these candidates approach and pander to the royal family. They think they are telling us what we want to hear. So let's get deep into it.
Let's talk about this, because the last time you and I had talked, this had just started to bubble up, the comments about stop and frisk, and then the redlining stuff. At some point, someone may have to, might be Mike Bloomberg, may have to reckon for the idea that the walk that he has walked and the talk that he's talking are having a tough time coming together. Well, who is Mike Bloomberg, and why do I keep hearing racist things from him?
Well, first of all, I'll challenge the basis of your comment.
Okay.
And as well as
let's get right to it. Anybody who says the financial crisis was caused by redlining is lying.
That is not what he said.
He did say
it. No, he did.
All right, I'm going to ask my producers to find what he said, because he very specifically said that redlining allowed banks to give.
He said loans were made to folks who shouldn't have been made loans. Right. That's what he said, which is true. And that Congress.
That is true. But you blame black and brown people for that?
That's not what he said. That's not what he said, Al. And I think it's so important to be intellectually honest when we discuss this. He said that loan packagers preyed on people who shouldn't have made loans, which is true.
Yes, that's true.
The banks supported that.
Yes, they created
and encouraged it.
Yeah.
So banks were at fault. Loan packagers were at fault. People who were taking advantage.
Another bought and sold coon.
No, not at fault. The reality is that as mayor of New York City, Mike Bloomberg worked in foreclosures, worked in evictions, used his foundation to help cities all around the country to help people stay in their homes, created more affordable housing in New York City, 175,000 units, than any other.
The reason why Bloomberg has these foundations, that is a tax write-off. That's all it is. As we continue on.
In the country. His record on this is clear. He opened up opportunities for African Americans and Latinos and just working class people all across New York City. So, I mean, I think it's intellectually dishonest. And God bless all of our candidates. I know Senator Lawrence had something to say about this. I've watched what some of the stuff Senator Sanders has had to say. We can't repeat 2016 here, where we just try to tear each other apart. Mike has been getting around this country. I've been with him. He's got offices in 40 states and 2 territories right now, working and pulling together an incredibly broad swath of Americans who are supporting his rise.
I agree.
And I'll tell you, I would disagree with Keisha on one point. Everywhere I go, people are talking about this election, because when people want to send Donald Trump home, we're in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a place that rarely gets presidential candidates, has space for 500 people. The fire marshal shut it down and filled up. The overflow, 300 more people outside. I'm saying people are
let's
engaged.
just go back to this, because I think you're right. We need to be intellectually honest about this. Redlining was eliminated by the Fair Housing Act. It was made illegal in 1965 to 1968. The idea that in a conversation about what caused the financial crisis, you would blame the elimination of a racial practice. Right. You agree with me? You agree with me? No, but he did say redlining. He brought redlining up. He didn't say. I have said for 10 years I've been covering this. I have said 12 years I've been covering the recession, and I have said bank practices were responsible for it.
Redlining.
I never said in my life. I never said redlining was what it was.
Redlining combined with the.
Now you see that tear on that Negro's eye? What you crying for? All that buck dancing. You scared you ain't gonna get it out right? You see him, my royal family? This Negro crying. As we continue on.
Incredibly robust investment in building a middle class that America participated in the 20th century that was limited only mostly to white families. Is part of the challenge we're facing right now.
Right.
That's not Mike's record, and that's not how he feels.
So how does he get that message out there?
Well, he's out there.
Right.
He's grinding. I will tell you that just in the last few days, we've been I've been with him in 12 different cities. He's out there speaking directly to folks. People think it's all media. It's not just media, social media. He's out there working every single day. First one in the room, last one to leave the room.
Right.
And he'll have an opportunity to go face to face with some of his Democratic candidates. I would ask just that everyone just actually listen very closely to what he says, and even more importantly, listen closely to what he's done. Mike has actually had the responsibility of delivering for people, not legislating in Washington, D.C.
But it's
not
weird, man.
But it makes a difference. People want someone who gets something
done. I'm a person of color, and when I hear this stuff, it sounds like racism. It sounds like racism.
I am too, no.
And it dropped on the day of the New Hampshire primary, which is awful suspicious.
Amazingly suspicious. You know, the fact of the matter is that Mike is rising in the polls. People from every background. We go to these events. These are hardcore Democrats. These are independents, and these are moderate Republicans who are showing up because they see the person who can beat Donald Trump in November.
Okay.
Who can beat Donald Trump in November, and as a result, people are shooting at him every single way.
Right. So if he makes it to the debate, which he might, right? He might be on the debate stage this week. What happens then? Because if guys like me are taking a shot at him, there are actually going to be 7 other candidates on that stage. 7 other candidates.
Because they see what's happening too.
Right.
Mike's
That's
winning.
natural.
He's winning. He's significantly seeing a rise in the polls. This week alone, #1 in the poll in Florida, #1 in Arkansas, #2 and 3 in North Carolina, in Missouri, in Texas. We're rising because people are buying into the message of the guy who can beat Donald Trump with a record of actually accomplishing something, not just talking about it for 30 years.
What's the satisfaction that you get out of Michael Bloomberg's plan to alleviate wealth inequality between blacks and whites?
The Greenwood Initiative is incredibly powerful. I was there in Tulsa with Mike when he delivered the speech. You're talking about not just 1 million new homeowners, but 100,000 new African-American owned businesses using the power of the federal government to invest $70 billion in the 100 most challenged neighborhoods in the country. Increasing the partnership with African-American owned banks and doing what Mike did in New York City. Now, we talked about doing, like a lot of candidates are, what he did in New York City, increasing the number of small women and minority-owned businesses doing business with the federal government. He has a record of actually getting things done. Place-based strategies that'll help you elevate people in communities all across the country. We got to build an economy that works for everyone. I will also challenge you on one other point you made earlier. Mike does support a $15 minimum wage. He's on record doing so. The challenge that we're facing right now, he talks about it regularly, he's always ideating and innovating, is that the gig economy we live in right now is very different than 10 years ago and 20 years ago. He's worked through it. He's worked to build not only a business, but one that speaks to inclusion and making sure we're...
And I appreciate you correcting me on that. I was speaking historically, and I may not have made that clear, that he is not... Bernie Sanders was making the point that he's always been about this. He brought everybody around. I mean, everybody's caught up to that, and Mike is there.
Has he passed a law in Congress to do it?
Yeah.
No, he hasn't. Exactly.
No, but a lot of the people, a lot of the companies that did, Target and Walmart, they influenced.
You got to get things done. You can't just talk about it.
But they said that they were influenced by this Fight for 15 campaign.
You can't
erase the idea that Bernie Sanders did make. Remember, we were talking about $12 an hour in 2016.
Make it happen.
Good to see you, Mayor. I'll see you in South Carolina.
It all sounds good. You know, these candidates, they say stuff, but when they get elected, I mean, instantly they get brand new on you. So we got another crying, bought, and sold coon. Now we're going to get into the bonus video, and we're going to hear out of the horse's mouth what's really on his true heart. So, let's see. This was done August 4th, 2011. Bloomberg kicks off new effort to empower Black Latino men. Okay, we're going to hear it out of the horse's mouth.
Blacks and Latinos are not fully sharing in the promise of American freedom. That from a speech this morning by New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who announced a $127 million three-year plan to coordinate city agencies and efforts with a goal of reducing disparities between young Black and Latino men and the rest of the population. Among much else, the city would create job recruitment centers and public housing projects, place new probation centers in high-risk areas to enable young men to stay closer to home. And for the first time, the Department of Education would make the success of blacks and Latinos a part of school progress reports. The mayor himself will contribute 30.
Did y'all catch that, my royal family? Now, this is back in 2011. Said that basically he would build probation centers closer to your home. You got to listen to these people real close. Ooh, they grimy.
$30 million through his foundation, an amount being matched by financier George Soros. The rest comes from the city. Mayor Michael Bloomberg joins us now from City Hall in New York. And welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
What exactly, first, is the problem as you see it, and how serious is it?
Well, for a long time, people have said there's nothing you can do about it, but the blacks and Latinos score terribly in school testing compared to whites and Asians. If you look at our jails, it's predominantly minorities. If you look at where crime takes place, it's in minority neighborhoods. If you look at who the victims and the perpetrators are, it's virtually all minorities. This is something that has gone on for a long time. I assume it's prevalent elsewhere, but certainly true in New York City. And for many, many years, people said there was just nothing you can do about it. Now, what we have done in the last 10 years is we've cut the testing gap in schools for black and Latino kids versus white and Asian kids in half, but they still are way behind. We have tried to diversify our police department so that it really does mirror the community's ethnicity, and they've brought crime down dramatically. We have the lowest crime rate we've ever had in the history of the city, and that's particularly important to black and Latino kids and their families and their neighborhoods because that's where the crime is. So they benefit from that. And we've done a number of these kinds of things trying to attract the kind of jobs that are available to people who maybe don't have a formal education, have dropped out of school, or don't have great command of the English language, or have a blemish on their resume, which would keep them from getting a job at a more traditional firm where they do an extensive background check. And so we've tried to attract industries that can use the people here who are unemployed. But nevertheless, there's this enormous cohort of black and Latino males aged, let's say, 16 to 25, that don't have jobs, don't have any prospects, don't know how to find jobs, don't know what their skill sets are, don't know how to behave in the workplace where they have to work collaboratively and collectively.
Did y'all hear that? Said blacks and Latinos don't know how to behave in the workplace. You know, making it like y'all I can't even pronounce the damn word, incapacitated, where y'all so deranged, you don't have a clue how to go to walk heel and toe to go seek and find employment. He know what the fuck going on. They slam the door in your face. And when you do that generation after generation, and then on top, remember, he was fully, heavy-handedly coming down with stop and frisk. They don't know how to behave at work. Fuck you, you deranged bitch.
Excuse me, but let me, if I could, ask you for a specific example, because you're saying all these things you've been doing have not been enough. So I listed some of the examples. One key that you talk about in the jobs area is linking employers with young men who are or have been in prison. Now, how specifically, what will change? How will you go about convincing employers that these people should be employed?
Well, I think employers, if you can show them that these kids have paid their debt to society and have gotten some training afterwards so they know how to fit into the workplace, there are jobs where they can participate, have the dignity of being self-sufficient, contribute to their employer, and get along with everybody else. There are some jobs where if you have a criminal record, you're just not going to get. There's some public safety things where it just doesn't fit. But there will be jobs if we can get these kids get their families together, even if their fathers don't live with their mothers or have never been married, or maybe even they're in jail. Get the fathers engaged. A lot of statistics show that if the father is engaged, it gives the kids some understanding that he's heading down the wrong path. And then assign mentors to them on a one-on-one basis, so that there's somebody who has been successful, has a job, has a family, fits into society, and that they can go to. You know, a lot of these kids, it isn't that they're bad kids, it's that once they made a mistake, it is very difficult to recover from that. But we have an obligation to them, if not for compassionate reasons, just for selfish reasons. 3/4 of all kids in New York City that go to jail, serve a period, and come out, go right back to the jail. 3/4 of them go back within a very short period of time. We just got to break that cycle.
But as you say, the aspiration, the goal has been there for a long time. You yourself have tried many things that don't seem to have worked. What has been, when you look back, when your staff and everybody was looking at all this, what have been the chief stumbling blocks, and how do you get past them this time?
Well, I think number one, it's not fair to say we haven't made some progress, because there's an awful lot of kids that we have helped. They've gotten through the most difficult periods in their lives. They're constructive members of society. For all I know, one's going to be the next mayor of New York City. For all I know, one will win a Nobel Prize. We have made a difference. We haven't made enough difference, and we haven't reached out to as many kids as we think we could. There's some simple things you can do. For example, if you want to apply for a job, they say, let me see some ID. A lot of our kids don't have an ID. They just don't have any document that shows who they are. And so if you apply for a federal or a state or a city program, or if you try to apply for a job, you just don't have the documentation. You and I think everybody has an ID. Of course they'd have an ID. They must have a social security card. They must have a driver's license, whatever. These kids don't have that. And so just getting them through that kind of stuff would make a difference.
And can I ask you briefly, I mean, you obviously thought this was important enough to put a lot of your own money in through your foundation. Does it not,
Yes.
Does it not happen otherwise? Does it not get done otherwise?
Well, look, the reality of today's economy is nobody wants to pay more taxes. We can't afford the services that we've gotten accustomed to. We are not likely to add more services in the immediate future. And so if we want to do something now, we've got to do a public-private partnership. The other thing is that private money is different than public money. It's much smaller. For example, our school system costs us $22 billion a year to run. So you can't make a meaningful difference in our public school system with the amount of money we can raise in the private sector. On the other hand, with private money, you can try new things that you can't do with public money. Public money, you really have to be able to be reasonably assured that the programs, the things you do with it are going to work. You can't take a gamble on something that's off the wall that may have enormous payback, but has enormous risks with it. With private money, you can do a demonstration project with exactly that, find out what works, and then if it works, put it back into the system and let the public pay for it.
All right, Mayor, before I let you go, I do have to ask you about the main story of the day, the dramatic drop in the stock market. Briefly, if you could, what do you see happening, and how concerned are you about the markets and the economy?
Well, I think we should be very concerned. I've been saying all along during this fiasco, trying to come to an agreement on the deficit ceiling. The public has been watching the process.
All right, my royal family. So basically what Bloomberg is trying to apply back there in 2011 is they have exhausted themselves, and they didn't put programs in place, and yes, some have been helped. I learned this back in the 80s through one of my relatives who worked in one of those type of programs, and I was told that these programs that they have designated for us, those programs do not thrive if we succeed. So what they bank on is you don't have a high school diploma. See, what they do is they test you and they see where you're at according to the test. Say, for instance, you pass the test 100%. They can't help you at all. the way they have these programs designed. Because what they're banking on is when you take the test, they do the assessment, they want to take you through their program where first you got to get your high school diploma or unquote GED. Then once you, if you can succeed in that, then they have all these other obstacles that they put you through, you know, and give you the illusion now you got all these choices and everything. And usually what choices they put in front of you are jobs that are barely a living wage. So some form or fashion you continue to depend on this program because, so to speak, you are a failure. Again, these programs will not thrive if you succeed. Let's keep that on our frontal lobe. So, as I come to the end of this, let me see something here. Okay. Did I take care of this one here? Let's double check. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything or leave anything out. Let's see here. I think this is one that I left out. Probably skipped over it. Let's see what it says. No vocals. Okay.
Michael Bloomberg will be on that stage after qualifying today. But the big news right now is from our brand new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, hot off the presses.
Okay. All right. No, we don't need that one. And let me double check. No, we don't need that one. So, back here. So, I want to break it down why Bloomberg is more dangerous than Trump. Bloomberg does have experience in politics. Okay? And the reason why Bloomberg is more dangerous than Trump, Bloomberg, first and foremost, is paranoid when it comes to Black and Latino men. And he has deputized himself. That's why he enforced stop and frisks. He didn't bring stop and frisk on. I did a video a long time ago about the origins of stop and frisk. But he felt like stop and frisk will keep him safe first. You got to look at how he's looking at this stuff. He's very concerned that Black and Latino men will take over. Usually the enemy is concerned with the size of our king's penis. That's just how they get down and everything. So he's worried about, they gonna hook up with these white girls. Let's keep it core and everything. So pretty much he look at them as a dismal failure. You heard how he talked on that? You know, like, I mean, y'all don't even have a piece of anything, a ID, social security card, a strand of hair, a shoestring, anything. He just paints a brush that y'all just a complete failure. But also he looking at them like you are a raw sexual animal that's going to screw all the white women in America. So it is my duty and responsibilities to put something forth to stop you. And he has demonstrated that he'll do that. If he becomes the president, he's going to adopt that thing nationwide. He will come up with a law specifically for the royal family to keep a chokehold on us. He is willing to invest his money, and he is already showing that he is willing to invest his money to oppress us, opposed to Trump. Trump ain't gonna invest his money in shit. He'll use other people's money to do that, but Trump is a foolish type of person. He likes to fool around and do goofy shit, but he is not so preoccupied with the royal family that he's going to invest in it. If he don't have to put a quarter in it, cool with him. Do what you're gonna do and stuff. And other than that, he just throw his hands up. If they come to him like, well, Trump, we got to get this thing going, but we need, since you're a billionaire, and he ain't, but anyhow, since you're a billionaire, this going to be a nice tax write-off for you, Trump. We can keep a chokehold on these black people. You can put in $5 or $6 billion, and that'll help with the cause. You know what I'm saying? And all of that. Trump be like, fuck y'all don't got no money up there in D.C. to do it. You see, he trying to get money anywhere he can to even build the wall. So Bloomberg gonna follow through on what he gonna do, because he willing to empty his account. Empty. This is how paranoid he is and stuff. This dude is typical. He is preoccupied. This man is old, and he trying to hold on with what little he got to hold on to. So he's investing. This is the thing that I've been talking about since I had this channel, that these people, some of them are out here that will invest in our king's demise. And it has came in fruition. The very thing that I have been repeating, that he is clearly showing what he is willing to invest in. So if he's willing to invest in our demise, remember whose shoulders that he rubbed with on a day-to-day basis, of the billionaires that say, shit, if he's invested in it, I'm going to invest in it, because we don't want our kingdom falling before our eyes. But we already see that the enemy can't stop prophecy. I'm spitting fire. And I know you feel what I say. And I'm talking about the enemy, my royal family. Just think about what I'm saying. How far is Trump willing to go with this? How far? Is he willing to go broke on this? That's how this dude is tripping. And then they want to make us feel some kind of way if he get reelected. See, what y'all don't understand, since Trump been in office, it has not changed anything in my individual personal life. It's the same old shit that's been going on with black people as long as I can remember. Same old shit. And so then he wants to act like he want to make an impact. He didn't even make an impact in New York when it came to getting folks off the street and making sure they have gainful employment. The way he made an impact is try to lock up as many as he can. That's what he made an impact on. And he is for redline. This motherfucker is a total lie. And then you got these coons out here willing to take a $5 million bribe, right before everybody's eyes, and no telling who else he gonna pay. I'm telling you, this gonna be a hell of an election, my royal family. We still got a long way to go. The way this election feels, it's like November is already here. Something very drastic, something very major is going to go down, and I already know what it is. There's going to be an announcement made, my royal family, a nationwide announcement, my royal family, and Trump is going to come to us, and he gonna say ADOS, and they gonna go the fuck off. Now what's gonna happen after that? I have to keep my mouth shut, my royal family. Now, if I'm wrong that Trump and his folks and cronies won't make that announcement, I will come right back here and say, okay, I got it wrong. Let's go for this ride, my royal family. Quite interesting, right? So I'm going to leave it there, my royal family. Render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.